can't tell you how relieved I am to have this crankshaft in and rotating easily. I was getting a little bit nervous about the general assembly just with, well, I've never done it before, so it seems like a pretty big deal every little step. So that's a win, having that crankshaft in, having it spinning freely. So I think tonight we're just gonna try and see, I think pistons are the next step. I'm just gonna try and get one piston in at least, that's the goal, and just see how it goes. So for the pistons, I'm gonna be following a procedure really similar for installation to the crankshaft bearings, because we again have bearings for these connecting rods. I am going to make sure that I know which way this hardware goes together, and I'm going to do that by taking a Sharpie. Let me find my Sharpie. Okay, paint marker it is. I'm just going to put a line across, and so that goes together for reassembly. So I'm going to take this off. I'm going to do the pistons one at a time, like installation of the bearings one at a time, rather than doing everything all at once. So again, a couple things to pay attention to. Oil passages need to be clean. There's an oil passage in here, so I'll make sure I'll just spray that out with some WD-40. And then it looks like I need to seat my piston rings at I need to clock the open interval at a certain place. So I'll do that according to my instructions, and then there's a mark on the piston here that tells me that end goes towards the front of the engine. So that's great, and then again we just make sure everything's clean. We install it into the engine, top down, using a piston ring compressor, and then we again use plastic gauge to check the bearing clearance. So I'm gonna get started here with just a little bit of touch up on these bearings, make sure they're clean of any surface rust. You can see nice crosshatch patterns on these things, but they do have a wee bit of surface rust. So again, I'm just using that Scotch-Brite because I'm not gonna damage this. And this is not the most crucial part to have rust free, because there's no movement against this surface. The bearing sits solid in there, so it's more crucial for the bearing itself to be rust free, which it is. So it's still packaged in a plastic airtight container. That oil hole. Okay, clean, clear. So that's clean. So surfaces are clean. These bearings are super soft, so I need to be careful not to nick them with the X-Acto knife. Cut upwards. And then there should be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So there will be 6 of each. Oh no, they look identical. All the tabs on these are on the same side, versus where on the crank bearings there was tabs on the side and tabs in the center. So I think I can just take the top two out. I'm gonna do them one at a time though. Wipe them down. It's the back side particularly of the bearing that we're interested in making sure is clean right now. Okay. And then one more wipe on this for good measure. Just a quick editorial note here to hopefully prevent you from making the same error I did. As you continue to watch, you'll see that I'm about to install a bearing with no hole over top of the oil hole on this bearing that essentially lubricates the cylinder wall. This is a catastrophic error, and fortunately I did catch it later on, as you can tell since I'm recording this video. Regardless, do not do as I did. If you look closely in your pack of bearings, you will find 6 that have an oil hole in them and 6 that have no oil hole in them. Please install accordingly. And these do only fit one way with the notch on the bearing. Kind of trying to push them in and then down. Make sure it's seated nicely. Okay. So that's that. I'm going to set those two aside. So you can see this figure here is illustrating that basically we want to clock the gaps in the different rings at different places. I'm assuming so this is, oil can't just blow straight out through all holes if they're in the same place. So number 1 is exactly opposite number 2, and then there's the upper side rail and the lower side rail. So I need to go find the part about where we install piston rings and make sure I know which ones they're referencing. If you're enjoying this video, be sure to check out my engine rebuild playlist on my channel for the rest of the videos in this series. Also, please like and subscribe. It helps support me and make future videos. Thanks very much. Okay, I think I've got it sorted it out here. So we've got ring number 1, ring number 2, and then what they refer to as the upper side rail on here, and then a spacer ring, and then the lower side rail. So according to our illustration, we want to have ring number 1 and be opposite of ring number 2, so that's good. And then we want the spacer ring gap, which is right in here, to align with the ring number 2 gap. And then the upper side rail gap is 90 degrees, sort of in the east position relative to ring number 1. And then the lower ring gap is on the far side here. So that's how they want them clocked. So that's done. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and turn the engine on our little rotisserie here. And that's awfully difficult. Maybe I just need to pick the weight up off the end. Oh, what a novel idea. There we are. So again, the key here is we have to keep everything super, super clean. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm going to just wet down my lint-free rag, the bit of WD-40. WD-40 I think helps any potential dirt and grime stick to the rag rather than the cylinder wall. then the next step, according to our book, what are we going to do? We're going to lubricate the piston and rings with clean oil, attach the ring compressor, rotate crankshaft until number 1 connecting rod journal, so here, is at bottom dead center. So you can see that journal right there is our number 1 connecting rod journal. So I'm going to reach underneath and I'm going to rotate the crankshaft by hand. Until that journal is, there we go, bottom dead center. So it's right at the bottom. So I'm just cleaning off the piston here. Want to ensure, maybe I should have done that step first. Want to ensure there's no dirt of any form on it. Okay, keynote, that arrow has to go towards the center. Another keynote, a tip that I've heard is you put some tubing over the bolts and that'll protect you from nicking anything accidentally. Okay, that's that. It's time for our ring compressor. And they say I want to leave a little bit of the piston sticking out so I can get started. It's a bit awkward to hold. I don't know how this is usually done. Maybe I can lay it down. Okay, and then next step, we need to lubricate the cylinder walls. But we're not lubricating the connecting rod journal because we're going to be doing a test fit with Plastigauge. Got this dirty sleeve out of the way. Okay. Let me just confirm this is the number 1 piston. Yeah, it says 1 on the connecting rod. Okay, carefully guiding it in. Okay. Sitting about right. Needs to spin a bit. Okay. So now I need to keep down pressure on this clamp. I'm going to make sure it's really tight. Down pressure on the clamp while gently tapping on the top of the piston. A wooden handled hammer is recommended. I don't have one, so I'm going to use this rubber light hammer, and it's just a gentle tap. If there's any resistance, I stop. I met some resistance there. It looks like the oil ring isn't getting seated all the way. Okay, I'm gonna have to pull it out and try again. I'm gonna keep more downforce. Particularly, oh yeah, and they said to tap the ring installer. Make sure it seats flush. Okay. Make sure our piston is clocked properly. Looks pretty close. There she goes. That's one done. Okay, so it's another day back in the shop working on continuing to put together the pistons in the engine. And I just caught what could have very well, if I hadn't caught it, it would have been a catastrophic error. So I've been putting the bearings in on these bearing caps, and I've got halfway done, 1, 2, 3. And then I went to start the next one, and what do I see? There's a hole in a bearing. I haven't seen a hole in a bearing yet. Huh? Okay, do the other ones have holes? Yes, all of them have holes. So, here's my catastrophic error. I installed 2 of the same bearing caps in each of the first 3 pistons when it should have been 1 of each. And the reason I did that is the main bearings, they have these tabs on the bearing, just like this tab here. But on the main bearings, one tab is offset and one tab is in the center, so you can't get it wrong. On the connecting rods, there's only offset tabs, so they can go in wrong. So I need to do a quick assessment here and figure out which half of the bearing journal that the hole goes in. Okay, so I figured this out. Here's our connecting rod with a hole in it, an oil hole. And here's the cap of our connecting rod, no hole. And here's the bearing with the hole. So this bearing, it's got to go in here. That lines up with that hole, and that tab here lines up with this tab. So basically what I've got to do is I've got to get these bearing halves, of which I have 6, into the bottom of the connecting rods. And that means I have to entirely undo everything that I've done so far. Ugh.